Hello, Ryan here, aka Mac, and welcome. The roadmap has been updated, so let us take a look at all of the changes. As always, a huge thank you to all of my patrons and channel members, in particular to my latest patron, Onion. Thank you so much for the support, it is truly appreciated. So for this fortnight's update on the roadmap, it does see some very interesting new additions to the progress tracker only. There are no new additions to 3.17.2, no updates for 3.18, but we do have some new progress tracker features. So first up, we have a feature that will be very helpful with the cargo refactor. It is the vehicle tractor beam, and this says implementing tractor beams attached to ships, either remote operated or a turret-like attachment. This allows players to move and tow bigger objects, including other ships. Now this has been in the works for quite a while, starting all the way back in October last year, with 78 weeks work from the EU Persistent Universe and Weapon Content team. It comes to a close around March next year, so quite the undertaking, and unfortunately it is clearly not coming for Alpha 3.18 and the introduction of the cargo refactor. So we won't be using ship-mounted tractor beams for the initial implementation of the cargo refactor, likely just handheld ones, not just the multi-tool. I think there'll be a dedicated one as well. But the day that the ship tractor beam comes in, we will really be able to step up our cargo handling skills. The next feature is pretty cool. It is called Artificial Gravity, which states implementing the dedicated functionality for items controlling the gravity per room for ships, outposts, and stations. And this also includes player controls as part of the engineering gameplay. Now this sounds very interesting and likely ties into the whole life support systems on board of ships, which we will hear about more in the monthly reports. This will allow us to interact with, turn off, fix up, replace, and so on, a component that generates artificial gravity for ships, outposts on moons or planets with very little gravity, or even space stations, meaning they can also be turned off or destroyed to use in our advantage to repel maybe boarders perhaps. Or my favourite idea of exploring a derelict space station, finding the engineering section to establish gravity, power, and life support first. So this is getting us one step closer to that dream, and this feature has 27 weeks work that begins at the end of September and completes late March next year. So quite the wait, but I'm sure it will be worth it. So the next feature added to the progress tracker is the Fire Rats armor. Now the Fire Rats are one of the many gangs that hail from Pyro, also lovers of all things fire by the sounds of things, and this deliverable, as you can imagine, is developing multiple armor variants for this gang. We have just seen this same update for the Ninetales gang, who do look pretty sick now, and I've noticed everyone, including myself, is running around in Ninetales armor. But for the Fire Rats armor, it has 6 weeks work that will begin right at the end of this month, being July, and will finish early to mid-September. Shopkeeper outfits are next, and this quite self-explanatory deliverable is, as you would expect, implementing a new generic shopkeeper uniform for various NPCs in the PU. So nothing overly exciting, but it has 6 weeks work that began at the beginning of this month and finishes early to mid-August. Now this next feature is called Unified Item Ports for FPS, which says it is renaming and standardizing character item ports, so the attachment locations on our character, to properly represent their capabilities. This includes expanding their characteristics to allow for more types of equipment to be used on the current item ports. Now I'm pretty intrigued by this, and hopefully it will bring a nice amount of quality of life updates to the system, as it is in need of a little refinement. And with 8 weeks work from the character art team, this began right at the start of July and will finish mid to late August. Okay, so the next feature has been a long time coming. It is Swimming Tier 0, which says creating basic functionality for the player to be able to swim across the surface of bodies of water, including related features such as entering, exiting, and drowning, and this includes support for hazardous liquids that can damage or kill the player and other characters. So quite a fun feature that is both needed for Squadron 42 and the Persistent Universe, and will be a lot of fun with this new river, but hopefully by the time it does come around, there will be many more rivers and other bodies of water as well, and many reasons to go swimming. Swimming Tier 0 has 13 weeks work from the actor feature team that will not kick off until January next year and complete around the end of March, so quite a while yet, but that does give plenty of time to add more bodies of water, more rivers, and get some missions hooked up to them as well. So next up, we have a pretty interesting new AI addition. It is AI Utility, which reads, implementing the utility AI behavior, and this AI will drive vehicles, pick up, haul and stow carryables, as well as manage the vehicle's cargo bay and inventory. Now this does say that it's specific to Squadron 42 from the AI content team, and likely used to move boxes around in a ship's hangar or found planetside at certain locations, but I'm almost certain that this behavior will be expanded to the persistent universe at a later date, as AI capable of moving boxes around just like the player can will be essential for fleshing out the economy, and having NPCs travelling around, delivering goods, picking up goods, transporting players and other NPCs as well. An interesting behavior that kicks off its 8 weeks work in early August and finishes late September. Now the next AI behavior that also specifies it's for Squadron 42 only, but I'm pretty sure will also be used eventually in the PU, is the Commuter Behavior, which we did hear about and actually see some mocap work being done during a recent Star Citizen Live. Now this AI will search for the means to travel to their destination, and while waiting for a vehicle to arrive, the AI will eat, drink and check notice boards or timetables, and then upon arrival of the transport, the AI will board and embark to their destination. So yeah, clearly not just for Squadron 42, as this will be a very necessary behavior for NPCs at landing zones, space stations, for the journeyman religious followers of course, all travelling from and to all manner of locations. The work here from the AI content team looks to have just kicked off and should be done in 12 weeks at the end of September. Now next up is a deliverable that is, well, done already, according to the progress tracker. It is called Environmental Space Missions. Now at first I thought this was probably referring to the derelict reclaimer missions in space, as the work on this had 8 weeks work from the EU Sandbox 1 team that began early May and completed in late June, so nicely tying in with 317.2. But when you read the description, it does sound even more interesting. Now, its description reads, implementation of new missions and scenarios that the player will encounter as they wander around areas of space. The missions that appear will be based on the probability volumes that the player is currently in. Now, what is very exciting about this deliverable is that it's the next step into the quantum simulation. In Alpha 316 or 317, I do forget which one, we heard that the first version of the quantum background simulation was coming in and will be affecting fuel, repair and rearm prices at various space stations, all based on what the background quanta, so the virtual AI, are doing. And what this meant for us, the player, is that as you fly around from place to place, you will see the prices of these three commodities begin to fluctuate, as in the background many AI are flying around, getting into fights and so on and so forth, needing to resupply themselves, and so they are using the station's resources. Now this is barely noticeable for the player, but it is a very important step for rolling out the quantum simulation, and part of this system, as we've heard from Tony Zurovec many times, is to do with the probability volumes, which are the potential of scenarios popping up for the player based on many factors like where the player is, what is happening around that area, and the chances of a player bumping into one or many of the virtual AI flying around. So I'm kind of expecting that these new space missions will begin popping up when implemented and require players to maybe help NPC freighters who might be getting attacked by NPC pirates. Now this should really help to spice things up in the verse, as these missions will evolve to be bigger and better with many more possible scenarios, and it is up to the player whether they want to stop and investigate. They should also be quite dynamic in the sense that no two missions will play out the same because of the variable ships involved and scenarios involved. But the most exciting aspect of this is that the work is already complete. So I do wonder when we will see these missions popping up for us, as this, it seems, is the next step to expanding on the all-important quantum simulation. So leading on from the last feature, I think this is what is required maybe before we can see space missions popping up. Maybe not, I don't know, but it is called New Interdiction Scenarios. And this one reads, adding new variations and difficulty levels of interdiction scenarios that players will come across while quantum travelling. Now this has 17 weeks work from the EU Sandbox 1 team that began early June and will finish mid-October, so quite a little while yet. This, I feel, might be part of the work needed to help realise the previous deliverable, as when we are quantum travelling around, we may be entering a potential probability volume for an interdiction to happen. It could also just be another facet of the previous card and just expand on the various ways probability volumes can happen, but either way, expanding on the possible interdiction scenarios will be very nice, as right now they are very much just get stopped, respool, and jump away. So having more diversity in these missions will be great, and as the game expands and we have boarding mechanics and derelicts and all these other options that we could stumble upon, I think the potential for greater missions using interdiction scenarios will begin to expand nicely. Now, the final new Progress Tracker edition is called Physicalized Weapon Handling. This says it introduces character animations while interacting with and customizing FPS weapons, with the aim being to add a tactile look and feel to weapon handling, supporting the wider goal of high-fidelity character interactions with all relevant objects in the game. Now, we have had this one on the Progress Tracker before, which got removed a little while back, so great to see that it's returned, and it has 7 weeks work from the weapon feature team that begins in January next year and will finish mid-February. And it was actually on 3.17.2 on the PTU just yesterday that I had a lot of fun running through the planetside derelict reclaimer, that is Ghost Hollow, with the NPCs walking around there, stealthing through with a choice of 3 different sites. I had a reflex hollow, a 2x and a 3x option, and I was able to seamlessly swap between them depending on the range of my target, which would have been even cooler had my character physically reached out and attached or detached them. So I am looking forward to this update, but it's not anything that is essential to gameplay, just makes things look even better. So there you have it, that was this fortnight's roadmap update. Nothing new to 3.17.2. I do feel though that there is more than enough in this patch, and I personally don't expect much else, but seeing these probability volume missions now coming along, I wouldn't be surprised if we see them make their way into the PTU in the very near term, even potentially 3.17.2, unless the interdiction scenarios are needed as well. But definitely great to see them expanding on the initial quantum simulation work previously, but all of these are some very interesting features now included on the Progress Tracker, and it'll be a lot of fun seeing many of them, if not all of them, come to fruition. But with that said, I will be getting on working on both of the latest monthly reports, some very exciting information found in them. Plus, I will be streaming over at twitch.tv/supermacbrother this afternoon, if anyone is interested in hanging out with me and my community while we talk about Star Citizen and play some 3.17.2. If you do enjoy my videos, please do consider subscribing and helping the channel to grow. Also hit that thumbs up if you don't mind, does the channel a big favour, and tick that notification bell if you would like to be notified when my videos go live. Again, huge thank you to my patrons and channel members, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.